Alrighty. How's it going? You don't have to answer that. But you can if you want. I'll try to psychically hear you. Or you can answer in the comments. How's everybody doing? So let's see. I've noticed, like, on the TV, on, like, you know, my landlord always watches, landlord that I live with, I rent a room, and so yeah, he's always watching CNN or MSNBC or NBC, or, you know, he flips between those. And so I'm always seeing them saying that 99, like, they have some weird number, like 99.9% of the people in the hospital with COVID in the US are unvaccinated. And it's a lie. Awesome. So, my voice decided to die just now, so right before I have to try to make a video. But yeah, too much marinara sauce, probably like the acidic. Ate spaghetti twice today. So yeah, they keep lying about that. It's just a made up number. I'm not sure if there was ever any basis for it, but they certainly have no real, you know, basis for it, because, like, I think in Alabama or something, there was some limited study or something, and it found like 75% of the people in hospital there for COVID were unvaccinated. But that's obviously, it was either Louisiana or Alabama. It was like a deep South state, or maybe it was Oklahoma or something, but it was like someplace where most people were probably not vaccinated anyway. So, you know, and it was still like 25% of the people in the hospital with COVID were vaccinated. Whereas in Massachusetts, where almost everybody's vaccinated, there was an actual study showing 75% of the people in hospital with COVID were vaccinated. And so what these newscasters keep saying about the 99% of people in hospital in the US with COVID are unvaccinated, as far as I know, it's just made up. It's just like somebody said it as some kind of maybe generalization, and then everybody else just quoted them. But there's no general studies in the US. It's very rarely, like, there's just not studies on this. There's no, like, real database to know. So that's like a really blatant lie, where they just are saying this totally baseless number just because that's what they want people to think, and they never even try to back it up with, you know, studies. You know, some study says, like, no, it's just, they just say it, and that's it. And then people repeat it, you know, like, I've had people repeat it to me, like, as fact, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's completely baseless. And but another major thing that they're lying about is they're claiming that the Pfizer vaccine is fully approved by the FDA. And it's a lie. Like, it's a huge bait and switch psyop by the whole establishment to make people think that the Pfizer vaccine is fully approved by the FDA, simply because the FDA gave tentative approval, or at least began the process of approval, for a separate vaccine by the same company, Pfizer, or at least that Pfizer is involved with, a vaccine that basically is not available yet, and it won't be available for like 2 years or more, and even the actual approval process won't be complete for another 2 years. So there's a chance that it still might not clear some hurdles and it might not be approved. So they're just doing a bait and switch by saying Pfizer vaccine, whereas it's a different vaccine. They're trying to confuse it with the vaccine that Pfizer is selling right now. So these are two ways in which it's clear that the whole mainstream media has, discarded any attempt whatsoever to even like really pretend to be at all honest or based in reality. I mean, I guess you could say, no, they're still pretending, because they kind of went to the effort of, like, it's an easy thing for them to mess with people's heads, but at the same time, it's so easy to expose it. It just shows they just really have no shame whatsoever. They have zero ethics, even in stuff where they can easily be caught by like anybody with Google or, whatever, anybody with any resources to just research it. So that's an amazing thing. And so there's all these people who are being tricked into taking the Pfizer vaccine, and they're saying that because it's fully approved by the FDA, and they're saying that this clears the way for vaccine mandates, because you can't, like, if you can show that the vaccine is fully approved, then there's less legal basis for people to refuse to take it. I mean, only a year or two ago, on the legal books, or probably even now in the legal books, in the actual laws of basically every country, it's illegal to force somebody to take a vaccine. And it's not even legal to really pressure them to, exert undue pressure on them to take a vaccine. And yet that's all out the window. Now they're, using every means, and, thousands of people, I think, are basically calling for full compulsory universal vaccinations, like basically that anybody would be either fined or jailed or maybe just confined to their home forever if they don't get vaccinated. And they're saying, so this, now that they can show that one of the vaccines is fully approved, then there will be no legal recourse for people who are losing their jobs or getting kicked out of school or whatever for not getting vaccinated. But I mean, I guess it would depend how stupid or deranged the judge and jury or whoever is, because like I say, it's a totally different vaccine. It's not that vaccine. It's not the one that's available now. It's one that's called Comirnaty or something like, and it's going to be made by BioNTech in Marburg, Germany, and it's a totally different vaccine. So it just shows that these people have no morals, like no ethics in terms of just straight up lying to the public about medical, important medical information. They keep trying to push it on kids, like say they're like all these people with absolutely zero medical experience are commanding the CDC and the FDA to approve vaccines for kids because we need them. It's like, that's not a thing. Like, if you don't know the medicine, if you don't know the effect of the vaccines on these people, then you have no place to say whether they're needed or not. Like, it's just insane. I mean, like, I knew shitlibs were fucking nuts, but like, they're really outdoing themselves this time. They really are. And so, yeah, like, And yeah, so the BioNTech company, which is Pfizer's European partner, basically, and it's the one that, I mean, it's basically their vaccine that they're doing. Both of these vaccines are joint Pfizer-BioNTech. So Pfizer is like the American division, and BioNTech is like the European / like international branch of it. And BioNTech is based in Marburg, Germany, where the Marburg virus was released from a lab, or it broke out in a lab in like 1978. No, 19. Yeah, I'm not sure when. Maybe it's 1967, and it killed the lab workers. I think they said it was from a primate that was of African origin, that somehow had, like, it was basically a non-human primates virus that somehow leapt to the human population. So it's hard to know about that story. I mean, it's not that normal that diseases just jump from one species to the other very easily. So you certainly couldn't rule out that they were actually giving it that power in the lab through, like enhanced, they were just like either to make it a bioweapon or whatever it is. So who knows how, like, what they were really doing in that lab, who knows? But as soon as it was, released and known, and people were getting sick and dying from it, it was quickly became a bioweapon. And like Wikipedia will tell you that the Soviets synthesized it as a bioweapon. But I think it's clear that the US and others have it also. They might claim they have it just to study it and not as a bioweapon. But certainly the US has a very long-standing bioweapons, history of bioweapons programs, just as much as the USSR or whatever. And so anyway, I don't think it's at all a coincidence that right now, in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic and the insane kind of supposed response to it, or more what I would call taking advantage of it by the governments, that the Marburg virus, for the first time, I believe, ever in history, just appeared in West Africa in a human host, like a man supposedly in West Africa, I think in Guinea, died of Marburg. And so they're going to claim that, I think the claim is that he caught it from an African primate, just like what it originally came from. And this is probably the same as the AIDS thing, like where AIDS was supposed to have come from an African, like, primate, non-human primate, and then just, maybe supposedly somebody was like hunting chimps and got the disease from them. But I think there's a much more likelihood that if it did come from a primate, it was some primate in a lab, because they have these they use primates in a lot of this stuff because they're similar to humans, so they can test stuff on them. And it's very common for diseases to spread from lab animals to lab workers. And, and then again, they might have been actually deliberately enhancing that disease. And so, there's a lot of people who say that AIDS was, deliberately used to exterminate black people and gay people and other populations that were, you know, hated by the, you know, U.S. and British governments and other aligned governments, perhaps. So yeah, it's hard to really know, but I mean, if you look at what they did, the Tuskegee experiments and just like countless instances of ways that they've unleashed diseases against people and especially against black people, then yeah, it's quite plausible. And certainly in this case, like I would lean towards that with AIDS, that there was a sinister role in that, and that it was used to target populations that were basically the same type of populations that Hitler targeted. But in this case with Marburg, I would be very surprised, let's say, if the Marburg virus literally just jumped from a non-human primate to a person now, like in this time when the world is already like focused on like this, and just even that it would regardless, but I don't know. Yeah, I definitely think that's a bioweapon. I mean, it is a bioweapon. It is the most notorious bioweapon, perhaps. It's the one that they mention a lot in like movies about bioweapons. It kills people. I think you die within 2 days, or maybe can't remember how quickly they die, but basically everybody dies that gets the Marburg. So that potentially is like the real pandemic that COVID is like the kind of test run for. And yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, like I I can't prove all of this, but better to at least be open to the worst, you know, be cognizant of the worst possibilities, especially when they often are the most likely based on what we actually know. So so yeah, I think they are trying to genocide African people. It might go hand in hand with like the Rockefeller Foundation document from, you know, 2010 or whenever it was, when it said like that there would be some virus global pandemic and everybody would wear masks and lock down, and even when it was not even useful they would still do it, and there would be this authoritarianism, and then there would be big conflicts and outbreaks of protests and violence in Africa. So if that is in fact a blueprint for what's happening now, it may signify that Africa is a big target of them, you know, that they're trying to carve up the last of the last of that continent, and have even more absolute control over it, and maybe, you know, genocide as many people as they can there. I don't really know, but you know, I mean, if they're not, they're still mass murderers. So it's not like, I mean, it's just a question of what kind of murders are they going to do today? Are they going to murder Palestinians? Are they going to murder Afghans like Biden just did when he droned, you know, some families or whatever in Afghanistan? Like, are they going to kill just, you know, are their police just going to keep murdering black people and, you know, homeless people and poor people in the streets? They're murdering people every day. So this is just a question are they also doing this other form of nefarious murder, or just all these forms of nefarious murder? So, when people have established a pattern of murderous behavior, and then it behooves one to take note and to, at least be open to the possibility that they basically are going to be murderous in many other ways, and potentially including this. So yeah, with the Marburg, I'm very, I strongly suspect that that's released on purpose, because, it's, and I would guess that if they actually can isolate the virus of Marburg that is actually unleashed, or even if they can just do an autopsy of the guy, which maybe they have done, in Guinea, who died of Marburg, that they will find that the virus is the same strain of virus that was synthesized as a bioweapon by the US and Russia and probably Britain and whoever else, in 1967, which would be proof that it didn't just, this guy didn't get it from a chimpanzee or something, that it came from, a lab. And so I'm not sure if they did that test or not. Certainly there was no indication that I've seen so far. So yeah, I would say, like, buckle up. There are a lot of people who think COVID is not real. I'm not a doctor. I haven't looked at COVID in a microscope, but I could say if Marburg starts going down, you might really want to social distance, because, some people, they want to rely so much on their immunity. That's the thing. I'm kind of caught between the two sides of, half the country is immunity. They don't even believe immunity exists. And then all they believe in is vaccines and masks and social distancing and doing whatever the TV tells you. And then the other half is COVID's not real. So just, have big, here in Santa Cruz, there's some people that are for freedom and whatever. And they get together. They were getting together during the lockdowns, and they would on the beach each week, and they would have a hug-in where everybody would hug each other. But it's yeah, that would make, again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't totally argue with them of how real COVID is or isn't, but it's they're living in a world where they think it's at least in their heads, it seems like they're in a world where bioweapons don't exist. And so any disease you can catch, you can just get old immunity. But that's there's some things that are created by humans, probably COVID, every indication COVID-19, and Marburg, which is not, which I think chances are even in the 60s, it may have been made to be able to infect humans, because it's very difficult, it's very difficult for animal diseases to jump to humans, or for any disease to jump between species. It's a very rare occurrence. So, there's I would say at least there's 50% chance that it was enhanced so to be able to jump to humans in that lab in Marburg. And I don't know if it's the same lab that BioNTech now controls or not. But either way, Marburg is some weird fucked up shit. It's not the cold. And and even the flu is fucked up shit because H1N1, I believe that also was created. I mean, certainly it was released from a lab in 1977 or 1979 or thereabouts. It was released from a lab and there was a pandemic, and they were able to isolate it and study it and see that it was made in a lab, that it was, a strain of it that had been in a lab in 1950 and had been unchanged since then. But I believe that there's a lot of reason to suspect that H1N1 was originally created in a lab, because it came about during, World War I and the Russian Revolution, and it was at the time when biowarfare was being launched. Like, that was like the early days of biowarfare studies or whatever, and a lot of people at the time saw it as a bioweapon, and it didn't act like any normal virus. It targeted the youth, and it was very mild on the elderly. So it's like we've never really lived in this world that people think we live in, where just everything is natural and you just gotta just get your natural immunity going, because we've been dealing with lab produced and probably enhanced, certainly with COVID-19, it seems to be lab enhanced virus. If the previous head of the CDC is to be believed, which, I mean, he was basically the top, virologist in the world, or one of the top ones. And it's like, I don't fuck with natural immunity for bioweapons, whether it's COVID-19, and certainly not for Marburg. So people who want to live in this pipe dream where you can just like use your natural immunity and hug everybody and kiss everybody and just it's like trying to hug a bomb and be like, my natural immunity, bro. Like, somebody nukes you and you just are like, you try to use your natural immunity to ward off the nuke. Like, no, like, it's like, or mustard gas or something. Like, there's some things like, so yeah, if Marburg starts going around, buckle up, social distance. And yeah, let's see, was there anything else I was gonna say? I don't know. Oh, just that obviously it's bullshit. All these fakers and scum like mad at Biden for not like airlifting all the women out of Afghanistan, when like a lot of the US's closest allies like Saudi Arabia arguably treat women just as bad or worse than the Taliban, or basically just as bad as the Taliban does. So, and they're never going to be airlifting the women out of Riyadh or whatever. So, it's stupid nonsense, and nobody spewing that should really like be taken that seriously. I mean, I'm all for like freedom of movement, and if people want to come to the US, that's fine, if, I guess, but they're acting like just because there's people who want to come to the US from Afghanistan, that means we should stay there, or that means the Taliban is evil. There's people who want to come to the US from a lot of countries. So it doesn't mean we have to bomb all those countries. It doesn't mean we need to airlift every single person that wants to come here. Anyway, I'm not trying to minimize, but I'm just saying people are overly maximizing this stuff, and it's just like a huge psyop. So Thanks and take care.